Adieu, dit le renard. Voici mon secret. Il est très simple. On ne voit bien qu'avec le cœur. L'essentiel est invisible pour les yeux. Hello. That comes from, oh, by the way, I had to borrow these glasses from Michael. Don't worry, I'll give them back to him. That comes from one of my very favorite books, Le Petit Prince, El Principito, The Little Prince. And it's a book which is absolutely full of truth, both biblical and human. And so it's really valid for any human being to benefit from. That line that I just quoted, which is my favorite line from the whole book, I've read this in Spanish. Let me see if I can remember how it goes. It's aquí está mi secreto. Es muy simple. Solo se ve bien con el corazón. Lo esencial es invisible a los ojos. Here's my secret. It's very simple. One only sees well with the heart. That which is essential is invisible to the eyes. Up to this point, we've gone through 84 class periods, and all we've done thus far has been to speak, to interact orally. You've listened, you've spoken to me, you've responded to my questions, and vice versa. But now we're starting to get into, in lesson 2.3, this 85th day of our classes together, getting into the written language. No, you're not going to do any writing. That won't take place until Unit 5. That's a long way off. But you're going to start to do elementary reading at this point. Reading is extremely valuable, as you know, and it's valuable for one basic reason, among many, but this is one very fundamental reason, is that speech alone, what we've done thus far, speaking and listening, is really only valid if you're talking about a living person, a person with whom you can actually relate at this time in speech, orally. And also, for the most part, refers to people who are located in proximity to you, a person across the globe, or a person with whom you're not connected by internet or by telephone. You can't talk with them, but you can benefit from their ideas, from their thinking, if they put words in writing, and therefore learning to read is extremely, extremely valuable. It's also potentially extremely destructive. If reading is undertaken too soon, it can really short circuit and maybe even doom your ability to ever speak the language fluently. Here's why. This verb right here. What's this verb? Say it in the language you're learning. I don't have the right color on, but hopefully you recognize that's the verb to work. And if you saw on a list of vocabulary, a page with a list of vocabulary, that word, you wouldn't see a picture. You'd see the word written in French, travailer, and in Spanish you'd see trabajar. Of course, that's not how you pronounce those words, but that is how you would pronounce them if you had never heard them before and you just read them off a page. Travailer and trabajar. And you'd see that they equal to work. They have the meaning of to work. And then you'd see a lot of other words, and other translations and vocabulary words on the page, and you'd memorize all of them, trying to come up with some kind of a word picture or some kind of a trick to remember that travailer means to work and trabajar means to work. Obviously, by what I'm just saying to you, you can see the destructive impact that reading too soon, seeing words in print too soon, can have on you. It ruins your thought process. You have to always think in English and then think of the translation before you can speak. And also, you will tend to use the English phonics system. That means the sounds that you know that letters make in English when they're located in proximity one to another, how they go together to make a certain sound, and therefore you'd say trabajar instead of trabajar, and you'd say traveler or travailler instead of travailler. But fortunately for us, this is not too soon for you to learn how to read, because you first laid an oral foundation to your knowledge. You can already speak with a certain degree of fluency with me using the 60 most common verbs, a lot of nouns associated with those verbs. You learned how to conjugate verbs, put them in a sentence, make them a negative sentence, a question, etc., etc., etc. You already got a good oral foundation. And so I can dare to present to you now the written language without there being the threat that you're going to corrupt your pronunciation of the language or think in English as you're reading it. But that also means there's a limitation. I need to make sure that as much as possible, the reading that I expose you to, that it uses almost exclusively the words that you already know in oral form. Now, I can't completely abide by that, and you'll be learning some new vocabulary as you do the reading, and that's a good thing. I'll try to find ways to present that vocabulary to you in a helpful fashion that will not be destructive of your language abilities. But for the most part, I'm going to try and limit myself to the vocabulary you already know. Now, some teachers might be dissatisfied. As I give you a statement in print, they might say, well, there's a more fluent, more idiomatic way in which to say that or to write that. They have to remember that I'm trying to stay within the boundaries of the vocabulary you already know so that we can progress in a healthy way as you learn the phonics of the language, the sound that letters make, and you learn how to read. Now, the fact that we're starting to read now, and you'll see words in print for the first time, does not mean we're going to start writing at this point. That's not until Unit 5. That's a long way off. I want you first to see a lot of the written language before you ever try to replicate it yourself in written form, before you ever start doing any writing. Last of all, just a comment to teachers now, a little advice to them, and it also really applies to you students. Good for you to bear this in mind. In this first exposure to the phonics of the Spanish and French languages, that is to say, the sounds that letters make individually and in combination with other letters. As you see them, do not read out loud, or teachers do not ask your students to read out loud yet. That will start to occur once they have a strong grasp of the phonics system of the language that they're learning. That'll occur at the end of Unit 2. You might say the second series of reading activities that we'll do. The first series, which will last from 2.3 through about 2.9 or 10, just have them listen. That's why you'll see this image at the top of all the lessons, and that's really the only instruction. They are to click and to listen and to watch the words, to hear how they're pronounced, but they're not to verbalize them out loud yet. Okay. Well, let me just show you what one of these first lessons on reading instruction looks like. We'll go to 2.3 together and go through it. Now, by the way, you have two choices for reading. Depending on the kind of school you are, depending on what your objectives are, depending on who you are, you can choose to read either a kind of a generic story. I mentioned this earlier in lesson 82, class 82. A generic story about a fictional American family living in France, which may resemble my family, but it's strictly coincidental. Because it's a rather dysfunctional family. I don't want to take credit for that. The other reading is sections from the Bible, taken out of the Bible. And so whichever reading is most appropriate for your setting and appropriate for your interests and for you personally is the one you can choose. Or more likely, the teacher will dictate which one you're to do. Okay, let's go take a look at lesson 2.3. So we'll go here from the home page to daily lessons, and then we'll select one of the two languages. And we'll go to class number 85. And here you see the instructions as to what students are to perform and the lesson plan that teachers can download to know what to do if you're in a classroom situation with this lesson. However, we'll go directly to 2.3. So you see it says here, click here to go to lesson 2.3, select a reading of your choice or the one indicated by your instructor and perform the activities found there. So here we are at the selection point between the Richardson family is the name of the family, and a reading from the book of Genesis, the creation account in the Bible. So we'll click here on the Richardsons, and here you see first of all that within lesson 2.3 you're going to be presented with the alphabet, and you'll see the two sections devoted to the alphabet, and then we'll start getting into phonics. The sounds that letters make in combination in whatever language you happen to be studying. This is Spanish. The sound we're focusing on in this particular lesson, it's a vowel sound. It's the sound A. For example, trabajar, that particular A, you hear trabajar. In French, it would be therefore not like in travailler. It's not a lot of difference between the two languages, but a slight difference in the pronunciation of this sound. Nonetheless, you see here the vowel along with a number of different consonants. So in this particular section, you learn not just to pronounce the vowel sound, which is a, and more importantly, not just the pronunciation, but how we represent that sound in the language you're learning. And you're also learning the consonants, the sounds that the consonants make. And again, that what is the letter we attribute to that particular sound in the language you're learning. So that's what you see in this first section here. Here you're supposed to, having already had a basic exposure to the sounds of the consonants and the vowels. This is one of the few times in these phonics lessons where you're actually going to do any speaking. You're going to try and pronounce these words. So you'll say, for example, you click, you hear you say ba, ka, etc. So that's what that section is about. This particular section, if you click here on the rather strange looking symbol, that means this is a phonics lesson of the first type dealing with the sound in Spanish, and it takes you to a PowerPoint video where you'll see, just like you've been exposed to doing in the past, you'll see letters and combinations of letters, and you'll be given a period of time in which to try to form the sound that they should make, and then you'll hear the correct answer when that is over. The next section, we finally get into the actual reading itself. So by this point, you've got a pretty good idea of the sound of that particular letter, which makes the sound in Spanish and in French. And so now you see a picture, the first picture of this particular story. By clicking here, you can hear the entire sentence read to you. I'll click and let you listen.
Un hombre mira unas fotos y recuerda a su familia.
You do not repeat it. You do not verbalize it out loud. You just listen and watch the print. You could click on it again. Listen
Un
to it
hombre
again.
mira unas fotos y recuerda a su familia.
Just follow with your eyes the text and listen to the sounds. Now, in the midst of this text, you notice there's a highlighting in red of certain letters, and that's because they contain this sound that we're focusing on in this lesson. By clicking on that combination of letters, ra, you'll hear the sound that consonant and that vowel make together.
Na.
And these are not new. In the previous sections, you've already said the sounds corresponding to these. They're called phonemes.
Da. Fa. A.
Okay, and then down below you see a new vocabulary is presented to you. In the midst of this sentence, you see in italics a word recuerda that you don't know. Recuerda. And so you look at this picture and you get the idea, he's thinking about the past. So this is un hombre mira unas fotos y what does he do? Recuerda a su familia. He's thinking about the past, some of his family in the past. He's obviously thinking, I think I know what it means, but I want to put it in English. And so what you do is you click on the red text.
Recordar.
You can click on the picture as well.
Recordar.
You'll hear the word.
Yo recuerdo. Tú recuerdas.
By clicking on the words here, you hear the conjugations of this particular verb. And then we move on to the next statement. And here you see again a picture. You see a series of sentences. You can listen to the first sentence.
La familia Richardson es una familia americana.
And as you're watching, you can click on it again, watch again.
La familia
Follow the letters
Richardson
with your eyes.
es una familia americana.
And then go back and click on the combinations of letters that are highlighted.
La. Fa. A. Na. A. Ka. Na.
Notice how there are 4 letters right there, which are highlighted, but they're really in 2 different pairs. The C and the A and the N and the A each make individual syllables.
Ka. Na.
Okay, and so that will continue on for a series. You see a series of pictures here. Again, some new vocabulary presented in the midst. This is the verb cuidar. There is a video associated with it, and then here's the word by itself, and the picture you will always refer to or think of when this word is said. And then finally, you notice that partway through, having been exposed enough times to the phonics of this particular vowel, the sound this vowel makes in combination with consonants, then you just see the sentences without any particular elements highlighted, any syllables highlighted, and you can simply click.
La familia duerme, pero mamá se levanta.
And you read, and you know, it's not probably through the reading that you're going to understand what is being said about this picture. Listen to the sentence again and close your eyes. Just listen to the sentence.
La familia duerme, pero mamá se levanta.
Except for the, well, even the se levanta you should be able to figure out. La familia, you understand what that is. La familia, you've heard that word many times. Duerme, by the way, your eyes should be open even if mine are closed right now. Y, except for I forgot the rest of the sentence was. Pero mamá se levanta. Undoubtedly, you understand what that statement is just in hearing it without seeing the words. And so it's really, that's the beauty of this, if I may say so myself, is I've chosen vocabulary that you already know to try and express the ideas of what's going on in this story. And so it's not truly by the reading that you're probably going to understand initially, and that's not even my concern at this point, that you understand what's going on in the story. It's by hearing statements that you already can understand. And little by little, the reading will become the element by which you understand. But at first, it's largely going to be the things that you hear. Okay, well, I think that's probably scanned down to the bottom here. All I need to tell you, yes, the last section of this lesson gives you the same pictures that were mentioned or that you saw above and which were explained through those sentences of description. But here you just have the pictures now, and you see the symbol here, which means describe. And what this is telling you is now we don't want to abandon your oral abilities, your ability to speak the language. And so it's for you to retell the story just looking at the pictures. You'll say, for example, la familia es una familia americana, se llama Richardson, papá trabaja en una universidad, mamá se queda en la casa y cuida a los niños, etc., etc., etc. You'll go ahead and give a description of what's happening in those particular pictures there. Basically, you'll be retelling the story. Hope that's helpful as you get into lesson 2.3 and your first phonics activity. At first, it'll be very simple. All you'll be exposed to is all the consonants, but one vowel. You'll see that as we go from lesson to lesson, 2.4 will have the first vowel and the second one. 2.5 will have the first vowel, the second vowel, and a third one. And all the syllables containing those vowels will be highlighted. So more and more of the text that you're reading will have highlighted syllables on which you'll click, you'll hear the sound, and you'll move on. Okay, I'll see you in the course of our next class. Go now to lesson 2.3 and choose the particular kind of reading that you're going to do.